Hi, it's Katrina! From incredible ancient building techniques to unexplained objects in the sky, here are 9 incredible finds that scientists can't explain. Number 9. Djoser Pyramid. The Egyptians built their first pyramid, known to us today as the Step Pyramid of Djoser, around 4,700 years ago in the ancient necropolis of Saqqara. Djoser was the first king of Egypt's third dynasty. His vizier, Imhotep, diverted from traditional building methods and materials by designing a 6-layered, 197-foot-high stone pyramid, far unlike the rectangular dry clay brick monuments that were customary at the time. It's one of many structures that Djoser commissioned during his reign, but it's certainly the most well-known among them. Beneath the pyramid is a 3.5-mile-long series of tunnels. At the center of the labyrinth is a deep shaft containing Djoser's burial chamber. Curiously, his tomb is rather simple compared to other rulers, lacking the ornamentation that was characteristic of a king's resting place. 11 of Djoser's daughters were also laid to rest inside the pyramid, a unique first of Egypt's Old Kingdom, according to former Minister of Antiquities Zahi Hawass. The structure sits on a 37-acre complex surrounded by a 30-foot-high wall that contains 13 false doors and 1 authentic entrance. A 131-foot-wide trench was built around the wall as an added security feature against unwanted visitors, and there are numerous dummy buildings throughout the complex to further confuse anyone who might manage to get inside. Also at the site is a pair of buildings called the House of the North and the House of the South, whose purpose is unknown. Another structure, the South Tomb, contains a chapel, but is also a mystery. One of the site's most mysterious buildings, known as Temple T, has a very basic exterior with a contrasting, intricate interior. The builders' reasons and inspiration for the unique features of the pyramid and complex, beyond obvious security measures, are unknown. Researchers are still trying to solve these mysteries, from the simplicity of Djoser's burial chamber to the seemingly bland building that is shockingly elegant on the inside. Number 8. UFO Sightings in Idaho. Idaho ranked as the #1 state for UFO sightings in 2020, tallying up an impressive, or perhaps troubling, 164 reports of strange objects seen in the sky. Some of these sightings can be easily explained. For instance, people around the world have been baffled by SpaceX's StarLink satellites, which seem like an otherworldly string of white lights passing through the sky. At least one person reported seeing one in Idaho last year, and it's likely that people around the globe will begin to see them more often, as nearly 900 have been launched so far as part of SpaceX's vision to provide internet to the entire world. Other accounts of UFO sightings are less explainable, with concerned citizens phoning into the National UFO Reporting Center with reports of black discs and other unidentified aircraft flying overhead. Science journalist Sarah Scholes told the Post-Register that a lot of weird stuff goes on in the sky, and that it probably isn't alien spaceships. But what is it then? Oddly, as Scholes pointed out, the widespread interest in UFOs is not limited to conspiracy theorists. The U.S. government and reputable researchers are surprisingly invested in learning more about these sightings, and she thinks she knows why, stating, "The thing that people tend to have in common who get obsessed with this topic is just that it's a persistent mystery that needs a solution." The U.S. government is also very interested in knowing who is flying objects over the U.S. sky. If it isn't them, it is definitely someone else. Number 7. World's Oldest Bridge. In the early 20th century, archaeologists in Girzu, Iraq, discovered a monumental brick structure that was huge, but they had no idea what it was, so they called it the enigmatic construction. Girzu was once the center of a large city-state in ancient Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. This is one of the earliest known cities in the world. Now known as Tello, it was built during the 3rd millennium BC, around 4,000 years ago, and was rediscovered in 1929. There is much we still don't know about ancient Mesopotamia and the Sumerians, including how they were able to change our nomadic ways and create a settled civilization with advanced agricultural engineering, writing, mathematics, and medicine. 50,000 cuneiform tablets have been recovered, as well as incredible examples of pottery and jewelry. This brick structure with references to gods was believed to be a temple, a dam, or even a water regulator. Archaeologists are continuously making new discoveries about the Mesopotamians, and now, thanks to modern technology and satellites, the mystery of the enigmatic construction may have finally been solved. British Museum archaeologist Sebastian Ray was able to identify traces of an ancient water canal that passed directly through the structure thanks to excavations and satellite imagery. The structure was actually a bridge and is considered to be the world's oldest bridge and an amazing example of ancient engineering on a grand scale. It bottlenecked the 100-foot waterway down to just 12 feet wide and served as a path to the city's sacred district, where religious pilgrims traveled for festivals. It was so large because it had the same significance as a temple or a city wall. It was meant to be seen from afar. For the past 90 years, the bridge has fallen victim to warfare and the elements. The British Museum and the Iraq State Board of Antiquities are working together to restore and preserve the heavily damaged structure in hopes of eventually attracting tourism to the region. Number 6. White Island Mining Disaster. Wakkari, also known as White Island, is New Zealand's most active volcano. It's located roughly 30 miles off the east coast of the country's North Island. In September 1914, part of the volcano's crater wall collapsed, triggering a landslide that sent mud and rock gushing into the lake below. All 11 sulfur miners on the island at the time were buried alive in the disaster. A search party failed to recover the bodies, and all the buildings were missing, except for part of the site manager's house. Over time, debris began washing up, but the dead themselves and the contents of their homes were never found. Nobody even knows for sure what day the tragedy occurred, since the destruction was not noticed until days after. Scientists initially assumed that the rubble blocked the volcano's main vent, leading to a huge eruption, but they now doubt that an eruption ensued after the landslide. Not knowing the exact circumstances of the event added to the devastation for the sole surviving widow of the men, the rest of whom were single. When she filed for insurance compensation, the claim was thrown out on the basis of her not being able to prove what caused her husband's death, or that it happened while he was working. The events leading up to the disaster aren't the only mystery surrounding it. White Island Tours searched for descendants of the victims in 2014 and had little luck. Only one known possible connection was found when a man came forward saying that he believes his wife is related to one of the deceased laborers. While only 3 of the men had children, it is certainly possible that other relatives are out there, but their identities remain unknown for now. Number 5. Bosnia Pyramids. Amateur archaeologist Sam Osmanagic made headlines in 2008 with his adamant claims that the world's oldest and largest pyramids are actually in Bosnia, near the city of Visoko. He insisted that they were built 12,000 years ago by an advanced ancient society, and his stories about them became increasingly more abstract in the following years. Experts denounced Osmanagic's claims, pointing out that he had no valid evidence to back them up, and that the so-called pyramids are merely a group of distinctively shaped natural hills. Meanwhile, the armchair archaeologist upped the ante, stating that the mounds were built atop the most extensive network of underground tunnels ever discovered, and that the largest pyramid was built using an advanced type of concrete that supersedes modern construction materials. If you ask Osmanagic, these controversial peaks are energy amplifiers that enhance health and longevity. In an interview with Discover magazine, Boston University archaeologist Curtis Runnels said all of the finds being made by Osmanagic are either natural features like rocks or the result of long occupation in these valleys by people since the Greco-Roman period. As it turns out, this wasn't Osmanagic's first rodeo with making fantastical declarations. In one book he published before gaining worldwide publicity over his pyramid claims, he wrote that the ancient Maya civilization originated in the Pleiades constellation, and that their first stop on Earth was Atlantis. Numerous researchers from various disciplines, including geologists, archaeologists, and other scientists, have investigated Osmanagic's tall tales, but they found nothing to explain beyond the natural processes that formed the hills. Number 4. Encoded sword. During the 19th century, someone discovered a unique double-edged 13th century sword in the River Witham in northern England. It contains a cryptic 18-letter inscription that runs down its central groove that looks like this. The sword measures 38 inches long and weighs around 3 pounds. Researchers believe that it belonged to a knight and that the sharp steel blade was likely manufactured in Germany. Ever since the medieval weapon's discovery, the engraving has mystified historians, linguists, cryptographers, and other experts who have been unable to decipher its meaning. In 2015, the British Museum appealed to the public for help decoding the cryptic lettering. Countless people responded with theories ranging from outlandish to plausible, but none ultimately checked out. They suggested a myriad of languages, including Latin, Sicilian, Welsh, and more. One particularly interesting proposal, put forth by a Dutch scholar, stated that Saxon swords in particular often had inscriptions on them that didn't actually say anything, because the people buying them or making them were illiterate. People wanted swords with their names or other cool inscriptions on them, and they could recognize the symbols, but they couldn't actually read. At the end of the day, experts are still hoping to get to the bottom of the mystery and are looking for help in solving the encoded Crusader sword. Number 3. Skyquakes. There are various names for skyquakes depending on where you live in the world, including barisal guns, uminari, mist puffers, lagoni, and retumbos. Regardless of what you call them, they are mysterious booming sounds that come out of nowhere, usually when there is a clear blue sky. Have you ever experienced a skyquake? Let me know in the comments below. I haven't. Apparently, they are so loud that they produce shock waves that can make buildings vibrate. It is a sound resembling the explosion of a heavy piece of artillery that can be accounted for by none of the known laws of nature, writer James Fenimore Cooper wrote in 1850. The report is deep, hollow, and imposing. The lake seems to be speaking to the surrounding hills, which send back the echoes of its voice in accurate reply. Cooper's statements ring true today. Skyquakes have been more or less classified as sounds generated by some sort of distant activity, whether it be storms, earthquakes, mining, or military activity. Some of the booms may be caused by tests of secret military aircraft. A series of booms in Clintonville, Wisconsin kept people awake for 3 nights, and it turned out to be caused by a swarm of small earthquakes, but nobody truly knows where they originate from or what causes them. In late 2020, a team of seismologists published a study narrowing down these theories based on seismological data recorded between 2013 and 2015 in North Carolina. In the process, they ruled out earthquakes as a possible cause for skyquakes and concluded that they believe the phenomenon is caused in the atmosphere itself, not in the ground. But what exactly skyquakes are and what causes them remain a mystery. Number 2. The Stargate of Sri Lanka. Located on a 40-acre plot of land in Sri Lanka, Ranmasu Uyana is a park containing the beautiful gardens enjoyed by past royals. The gardens themselves and the nearby Tessawewa Reservoir were built in the 3rd century BC, during the time of King Tissa. Pavilions and other small buildings, which partially survive today, were built between the 8th and 9th centuries. The park contained a highly sophisticated water system for its time, which sourced water from the nearby reservoir. The water ran through the park's baths and other features and was deposited into neighboring rice fields. One curious artifact at the site, a carved boulder called the Saqqara Chakraya, has gained widespread attention from conspiracy theorists who believe that it acted as a stargate or an interface between ancient humans and aliens from outer space. Proponents of this theory claim that the engraving dates back some 6,500 years. The alleged Stargate contains a strange circular inscription measuring 6 feet in diameter, filled with small circles with crosses on the inside. 4 seats face the boulder. One of the more imaginative theories about the carving holds that extraterrestrials mined gold at Ranmasu Uyana using advanced techniques unknown to the modern world. This and other abstract hypotheses suggest that there is a connection between the Saqqara Chakraya and architectural features of Peru and ancient Egypt. Mainstream archaeologists scoff at these notions, and with good reason. Not only do such claims lack evidence, they have the harmful effect of invalidating Sri Lanka's unique history and cultural identity. In the words of University of Kelaniya archaeology professor Raj Somadeva, who spoke with the country's Daily News in 2011, if someone is bringing up such a theory, he's doing it to fulfill neo-colonial goals. The meanings of the carvings and designs need to be studied and admired in their own historical and cultural context. Number 1. Muziris. During the early 2000s, archaeologists excavated at a site in Pattanam, a village in southern India where strange beads surfaced every year during monsoon season. Over the following years, they discovered a plethora of artifacts, including Roman amphorae, a 2,000-year-old dugout canoe, building foundations, glass beads, gold ornaments, iron, lead, and copper tools, and a wharf-like structure. Dr. P.J. Cherian, director of the Kerala Council for Historical Research, believes that the site is the lost city of Muziris, one of India's most important trading posts during the 1st century BC, that specialized heavily in the black pepper trade. Muziris was highly praised by ancient poets and writers, including Pliny the Elder, but it became more or less absent from written records after the 5th century, and eventually became more mythical than real in the eyes of many. If archaeologists have in fact found Muziris, it begs the question of why this city apparently collapsed. Federico de Romanis, an expert in the Indo-Roman pepper trade, spoke with The Guardian in 2016, stating Muziris was entirely dependent on foreign, especially Roman, demand for pepper. He theorizes that when the Roman Empire began struggling economically during the 3rd century, its demand for pepper fell, essentially putting Muziris out of business. Many experts agree that the site is probably Muziris, but understanding this mythical lost city is going to take a lot more work. Thanks for watching! Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!